The Raptors are coming off of an overtime win. It was quite the game against the Boston Celtics. They won 115-112, which, by the way, I did call. Check the receipts on my Twitter. Welcome to Raptors Today. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Sherman Hamilton. Paul Jones and Amy Audibert will be joining us a little bit later. I'm pretty proud of myself, Sherman. I did call that OT.
Clearly you are.
I also called them winning it in OT as well, so I'll give myself some credit there.
I got some lottery questions for you.
Okay, I got you. But we got to talk about Pascal Siakam because he's probably the more real reason why they ended up winning. 40 points, casually, just dropping that, really putting the team on his back. I believe he got 13 rebounds as well, so a very nice holistic game. What did you make of his performance? Because he was playing very aggressively.
He was. He did everything the Raptors needed him to do to help them get a win in a tough game against a undermanned, scrappy Boston Celtics team. And this is where leadership really comes to the forefront. At the end of the day, you're going to need your best players, be the best players in the most crucial moments. And Pascal was that throughout the game and overtime. You think about the pressure he was playing under. Pascal was in a situation where he understood Freddie wasn't 100%. He needed to put a little bit more out there. Defensively, he had to be very, very big for this team. And offensively, he was a nightmare for the Boston Celtics. They couldn't do anything to contend with what Pascal was doing. And at the end of the day, he did it all with foul trouble that he didn't know he was in to the extent he was in. Thought he had 4 fouls when he had 5, but just continued to play aggressively, was a factor on both sides of the basketball. So, Saf, his leadership was off the charts, and it was on both sides, and that's the most impressive thing.
Well, this seems to be the recurring pattern. Every single episode is turning to the Pascal Siakam show. Once the Scotty Barnes show, still kind of is. But, you know, we're talking about Pascal Siakam in the sense of he could be an all-NBA player this season, and I do think that he really should be, exactly. He deserves his flowers. He deserves all the credit right now because he's really taking this team, coming off of that All-Star stretch, which actually looked a little bit rocky post-All-Star, and he flipped it all around, and now the team is sitting, well, technically tied for 5th in the East. Yeah,
it's a big thing.
But it's a huge thing.
Absolutely.
To miss the playoffs and not to miss the play-in tournament and not have to have that added pressure. Of course, that goes a really long way. But let's go back to the game and talk about the momentum change, because there's a few moments that really shifted the way that this game was going to be determined. What stood out to you?
There's a few of them. I mean, Pascal making free throws is something that people have complained about Pascal, and everybody, just stop worrying about Pascal. He's playing on another level. He's being that guy for the Raptors, so stop nitpicking the guy. He's a great player, and he's doing a great job for his team. He made big free throws down the stretch. Fred VanVleet, quiet, and we know Fred is not 100%, but he's soldiering it out there. Fred makes 2 big threes down the stretch for his team. And you think about the ability on the defensive end to create turnovers. I think multiple plays down the stretch put this team in position, but it's their experience, it's their leadership, it's their determined attitude, and their mental toughness. This Boston Celtics team came into the Scotiabank Arena undermanned, missing some key players. And I think Ime Udoka and that staff did a great job orchestrating a game plan that put this game into overtime. But the Raptors were resilient. They did what they did. Their experience, their leadership, their championship pedigree helped them get over the hump in a tough situation.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't help but think about Fred VanVleet. Did he have the best game of his career? No. But he hit shots when it really mattered. In the the fourth quarter, he hit 2 threes that really turned the tides of the game. One that really stood out was the fact that he hit one, missed it. OG got the rebound, put it back out to him, hit it over Pritchard, and then, you know, that was for me the moment that was a resilience. That was like, he didn't hesitate to shoot that second 3-point shot. He was like, no, we can get this one again. And then following that, he hit another 3, which essentially brought the game to overtime on top of those Pascal free throws, of course.
No question,
so you love to see it. But another contributor that really stood out to me as well was Thad Young. What did you make of his performance?
You know, when the Raptors got Thad Young, Sav, I thought that this was a very, very good under-the-radar pickup, because he's a guy who can come into the situation. He's not going to step on anybody's toes. He's been around the block. He knows this league inside out. But more importantly, Thad Young is a type of veteran that has nothing to prove. He understands what he can do, and most importantly, he's not going to try and expand his game for no reason. And this is the kind of leadership you want, especially in a game like this. This was a playoff atmosphere game, and yes, Boston was missing some key guys, but you talk about the intensity of a playoff atmosphere, That was it against the Boston Celtics. And you need veteran guys who understand the magnitude of the situation and understand how to insert themselves without trying to do too much. I thought Thad Young was excellent defensively. 3 blocks in this game, did a great job being active, 8 rebounds. And forget he scored 12 points, but there were 12 important points. And that's his impact in the game, to the point where Nick Nurse left him out there late game situations. So to have that card to pull out of the deck late game anytime you need it and have that stability coming off your bench, you just can't understand the value of that until you see it in a game like you saw against Boston.
Exactly. I just remember some commentary around trade deadline being like, we traded a draft pick for Thad Young. He's a little bit of an older player, but he brings that veteran experience, and he did have almost a double-double. He was just 2 rebounds shy of a double-double, which came in clutch because he had also 3 blocks on top of that. So those are the little intangible things that, like, they show up on the stat sheet, and sometimes they don't show up on the stat sheet that you can't measure. But it's also that veteran leadership, like you said. But now we're going to hear from the players following the game.
It took me a little minute to kind of get myself back into it, back in rhythm, like just with like playing, because I wasn't playing at all in San Antonio. But now I feel like I'm getting in a good groove. I feel like I'm acclimated to what we're doing, and I feel like I'm getting back to my old self, getting in a good flow. So I just want to keep that going and ride this wave, into the playoffs. Just understanding everything, and then the guys have been great. They've been like filling me in along the way. Even if I don't know something on the court, they're telling me where to go and what to do. And for me, it's just all about going out there and doing it with maximum effort every single time. And it's been working out.
Yeah, it's a tough, right? It's like a little tough line you have to kind of like walk through, and it's hard. I think for me it was just instinct, just going out there and wherever I feel. And at that time, I mean, for the longest time I thought I had 4 fouls, to be honest with you. Like the whole time I had 5 fouls, I thought I had 4 in my head. So maybe if I didn't think that, maybe I would have been a little less aggressive. But no, like I just wanted to make plays, and we needed those plays, and I felt like like why not? And I wasn't really thinking about fouling out, to be honest. Yeah, and I think again that's what happens for me. I feel like most of the time, like I always look at the help. Like that's kind of like what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing anything else, and that's kind of like my mindset. Continuing. I think the way it was guarding me, like it was not that much pressure, so I had kind of like the head of steam to get to the rim, and those baskets fell. Those touch shots and things that I usually have. They fell, which helped, but. I just think that again it depends on how they were playing me, and I felt like I had an advantage, and again helps if you don't have if there's no help. It helps when there's no help, so yeah.
Now we're going to look at Marcus Smart's performance, because he's the engine of this team, but he's not that big name like a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown, but he still had 28 points and 10 rebounds on top of that last night. What did you make of his performance and just the role that he plays with the Celtics?
He's what you call a leader. I mean, this is a guy who you're never going to look at the stat lines to figure out his impact in the game. Remember early in the season when Boston was flailing with all the talent they had, he was the one who had the cachet, the clout to call the 2 stars out in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and say, hey, we got to play a different brand of basketball, and you two are responsible for our success. And they didn't pout. They didn't go back at him. They listened, because Marcus Smart has that leadership, attention, and quality that those guys are going to listen to. And at the end of the day, he's going to back it up with how hard he plays. And I thought it was interesting in a game without those 2 guys and without Al Horford and Robert Williams, he was able to step his play up another level. And that's what leadership does. Not only do you talk the talk, you walk the walk. And you look at Marcus Smart's ability to control that game, to be impactful on both sides throughout the whole course of the game. It was very impressive. Now, he took a lot of shots to get his points, but in a game where you don't have the firepower, you need somebody to shoot the ball. And he did that. And I will say this, you look at a Draymond Green for Golden State and what he brings to the table. He's not the best player, but he's so vital to the success of the best players that you can't leave him out of the equation. That's what Marcus Smart does for the Boston Celtics.
You have to respect him. You have to trust that he's going to be that guy that picks up the slack when the stars aren't there, and that's exactly what they did. And also, shout out to Boston's coaching as well, because to get the Raptors, which is an almost healthy Raptors team, to an overtime and lose by a very slim margin, that just says a lot about the team's character and Marcus Smart's performance as well.
No question. Ime Udoka, he's got to be up there for Coach of the Year.
Yes.
Got to.
Oh, Absolutely, absolutely. But we do have to also talk about, the standings in the East right now, because I actually tweeted this question. What was the last time you saw such a tight Eastern race? And I think the play-in obviously has a big impact on that.
For sure.
But what is the best position for the Raptors to be in? I think number one.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not reasonable. But what's the best position for the Raptors to be in heading into these postseason?
Well, first of all, I'd say not in the play-in tournament.
Yes.
That's where they don't want to be. And right now, they're not in the play-in tournament. So if they can maintain that level, that's great. But when you look at the top of the standings, where Miami, you have Philly, you have Milwaukee, I think the best matchup would be for the Philadelphia 76ers. I think
Really?
the Raptors, I think the Raptors have the ability to neutralize a lot of things that Philly does. Now, that doesn't mean in a 7-game series they're going to beat them, but I think that they have what it takes to make it interesting and to potentially win that series. And I will say this, at the end of the day, I put the Raptors up against anybody in the top of the Eastern Conference, and I would say I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be a cakewalk, that the Raptors could come out on top. And that's the beauty of this playoff race right now. You look at the deeper teams in the playoffs, even the play-in tournament, a team like Brooklyn, they get into this mix. Do you think at the 8th or 7th seed, anybody at the 1-2 seeds wants to see a team like Brooklyn?
Absolutely
It could
not.
be an early exit. So
Yep.
I just love the competitive nature of this playoff run down the stretch in the Eastern Conference. And if you're a Raptor fan, you should be very confident that whomever they face in the first round of the playoffs, they got a chance.
Well, let's do the process of elimination.
Okay.
We don't want to really see the Bucks. Giannis is actually pretty hard to stop, former MVP of the league, just casually. But then you think about the Heat. Like, they're literally on fire this season. Like, that's a team that has all the momentum going in their favor. Chicago, maybe not. But, like, it's a very tight race. So when I really do the deductions here, I don't have as much confidence in Philly in this regular season, because I don't know if I could trust Embiid's process quite yet.
Okay.
In the postseason.
Okay.
He might prove me wrong this year, but
Okay.
that is a matchup that I would probably want the Raptors to have in the first round potentially.
Okay, I'm with you on that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And something else to consider, rest versus wins. In the previous seasons, you could get away with maybe resting your star players at this time of the year because you know that you got a playoff spot secured relatively. The other guys can carry the weight. But now we're in a situation where you want to avoid the play-in, which makes for great basketball, as we saw against the Boston Celtics. But where does that leave coaches in terms of resting their players?
Yeah, it's interesting. It used to be rest versus rust. And to your point, the play-in tournament turned it into a rest versus wins because you're trying to avoid the play-in tournament. And I think for Nick Nurse and the Raptors, listen, you want to get to whatever situation you're in the postseason as healthy as possible. Now, how do you balance that in terms of continuing to pile up wins? Well, you're going to understand the magnitude of each game and when you can do it. And Nick Nurse and the medical staff for the Raptors have done a great job at really assessing situations and then understanding this is where Fred can take a break. This is where Pascal can take a break. Do we hold OG Anunoby out for a little longer? But the other thing I think that Nick Nurse and his staff have to deal with is you've got to get this group playing together. That's only like the 16th game where that starting unit has been together. So now you've got to figure out a way to get the reps, the continuity, to get the play together on the floor while still trying to balance rest, while still trying to balance wins. So it's not an easy situation, but I do think Nick Nurse and his staff have a great pulse on the team. And the players, they understand their bodies and understand what's at stake, and they're going to be real about what they're able to give. But at the end of the day, these guys are competitors. They're going to want to win, and I think that's going to be very, very important down the stretch to stay out of that play-in.
Well, we saw it against the Indiana Pacers game on Saturday where Fred VanVleet, he was playing the first little bit, and then after the situation, the fire in the building happened, he did get changed, and he rested for the rest of the game. They were up by like 30. It makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
So those situations, I think that was actually a really great call. We're now going to head over to Paul Jones.
All right, thanks, Savanna. The MVP race is really, really something else. Look, I think it's a two-horse race right now between Embiid and Jokic. Somehow or other, people are overlooking the greatness and the consistency of Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think John Morant's name is a name that people are considering because of how well Memphis has done. That being said, they've played really well without him, which kind of hurts his case. And then it's unfortunate that they've had injuries, but man, Chris Paul and Devin Booker both have a case to be made also. I think it's going to be Embiid. just because of where his team is as well. And Jokic has had a tremendous season. He's putting up arguably better numbers than he did last year, but his team is still sixth. And some of those teams aren't playing that well out west. And even as great as he's playing, mind you, with a depleted supporting cast, he still can't overtake them. So I thought Embiid had a good shot at it last year until he got hurt. I think you're going to see Embiid as the winner. But again, we've overlooked the greatness and the consistency of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And that's kind of the Bucks' MO right now. Like Giannis, they are flying under the radar. They are dangerous, and Giannis is a big part of why they are dangerous, Savanna. This is going to be a really hotly contested race, the Rookie of the Year. The three names that come to mind are Mobley, Barnes, and Cade Cunningham. And by the way, those three would headline my all-rookie team with Josh Giddey. And the fifth spot, Franz Wagner, Davion Mitchell, Herb Jones. You can pick any one of those guys, but I would put Giddey fourth. But between Barnes, Mobley, and Cunningham, Mobley's the guy that jumped out of the gate. And the Cavs did a great job early, and that's what made him, such a front runner. And maybe it was the expectations, too, around the Cavs and Mobley. And then I thought Scotty Barnes has really come on recently. I mean, really, really come on. He's a bit of a shooting slump right now, but, he's doing things for a winning team, a team that's winning right now more than Mobley. And then Cunningham's an interesting case because the number one pick, he started slow, and he's really coming on now. And, Rookie of the Year is not conventionally an award that is associated with winning. It's more of an individual. How is this young guy playing on his team, and what is he doing around the league? So that'll kind of buoy Cunningham's chances. But I really think it's going to come down to Barnes and Mobley. And I really hope the voters for Scotty Barnes' stake in the U.S. have been watching the Raptors and not just watching Mobley and the way Cleveland has been playing all year. Because right now, as we record this, the Raptors are in front of them and probably control their own destiny, thanks to Scotty Barnes. Another hotly contested race. I mean, you look at the Coach of the Year, and you could probably make a case for, a third of the coaches, maybe 9 or 10 guys that would be in the running. Look, I think it's Monty Williams to have that team come back after being up 2-0 in the finals and losing, and come back and have that team focused and clearly the best team in the NBA. He deserves a lot of credit. I know Savanna and Sherman touched on Ime Udoka and Boston's meteoric rise after the All-Star break. Taylor Jenkins is another one. I don't think anybody saw Memphis as the 2 seed at the start of the year. He's done a great job with them again, as we said, particularly with Ja Morant out of the lineup. And then there's a whole bunch of other names that come to mind. Bernie, his son, JB Bickerstaff, has done a terrific job in Cleveland. They've slipped lately, but JB's done a really nice job playing, a bit unconventionally, not the way everybody's playing now in the NBA. Jason Kidd has actually got the Mavericks playing defense, and part of that hiding and imploring Luka Doncic to do it. So give Jason Kidd some credit. Mike Malone's done a nice job without a full lineup, riding the back of Jokic. Hey, Nick Nurse has had people in and out of his lineup, and the Raptors are holding down the 6th seed and a playoff spot, looking higher. And then one of Nurse's, former assistants for a very short time, give Chris Finch a little bit of credit for what's happening in Minnesota too. So I think I just named a third of the league as potential Coach of the Year candidates. Although my vote, if I had one, would go to Monty Williams.
Thanks, Jonesy. Don't be shy to join us back at the desk soon, eh? Now we're going to head over to a piece I produced once again for Women's History Month. This time it's an aspiring broadcaster, the sweetest little girl. Her name is Noor Huda Sheikh, so let's take a watch.
I find broadcasting really interesting because I love basketball, I love playing it, I love talking about it. So broadcasting is just like perfect for me. I watched the Raptors all-women broadcast last year. It was really interesting. It was definitely a change of voice, change of perspective.
So she started watching the games with her aunt. There's a huge vibe in the living room when a game is going on. You could be in any corner of the house and you can hear her and her aunt cheering on. During halftime, she would just take up anything and pretend it's a mic and start doing her own broadcasting or commentary.
When I see women in broadcast, it really encourages younger girls like me to do exactly what they're doing and to show ourselves.
We're now going to head over to Amy Audibert.
Thank you so much, Savanna. As the regular season winds down, it really does feel like every game the stakes get a little bit higher. So let's look at the next opponent for the Raptors. It is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and it starts with Karl Anthony Towns, who is having a great season on the career. He's in his 7th season in the NBA, but former Rookie of the Year, 3-time All-Star. 3-point contest, the reigning. So, I mean, he's a champ at 6'11", and against the Raptors in their earlier meeting this season, he led the way with 24 points and 11 rebounds, but he went 9 for 14 from the field. And that's maybe one of his deadliest stats. He shoots around 53% from the field. He's incredibly efficient. He can score from all over the court, really just stepping up in that leadership category as well. And for the Raptors, how do they counter that? Well, it's going to start to see if Khem Birch is healthy or not, if not by committee and a lot of physicality. Alongside Karl Anthony Towns, there's some pretty electrifying players, if the Timberwolves may say so themselves. It's Anthony Edwards in his 2nd season is an entertainer with his skill set, and of course D'Angelo Russell as well. These two guys are really clicking for the T-Wolves. Now, if you're the Raptors, maybe you dip back into that game plan in that first meeting and look at how you really disrupted and slowed down these two guys, because Edwards went 0 for 8 from the field and Russell 2 for 11. They combined just 2 for 13 from the 3. Was not a good shooting night, but I imagine those two guys are going to have that a little bit on their mind when they come to Scotiabank Arena. And this is an issue when you go against Minnesota. They have multiple guys that can completely go off. So you've got to play them really tough, and especially right off the opening tip, because you don't want either of these ones to find their rhythm. An extra layer of motivation from Minnesota is the playoff standings. Right now, they're sitting in 7th behind Denver, but this is a group and a squad that obviously believes they should be in the playoffs and don't want to be in a play, and they'd rather go ahead and make a push for that 6th spot. So when you look at their remaining schedule, of course, they see the Raptors, and then after that, they've got Denver, but they finish off with Houston, Washington, and San Antonio. So they have to be having some locker room conversations, again, about really getting after it, because they probably see Toronto as a team that they can come in and get one from. Just like the Raptors, they are certainly understanding the impact of every single game.
Thanks, Amy. Now you could watch the Raptors take on the Timberwolves Wednesday at 7:30. Watch it on TSN. Listen to it on Sportsnet 590. Now from myself, Savanna Hamilton, from Sherman Hamilton, Paul Jones, Amy Audibert, from Jake, Armando, and Garth behind the scenes, thank you for watching another episode of Raptors Today.